All right, so we all live out here, Shofar Mountain or the greater Shofar Mountain. And despite what a lot of people think, I think out there in internet land and stuff like that, it's not like we sit around all day sipping iced tea and, just reading the Bible and having these deep philosophical, theological discussions. I mean, we all have competing priorities, very real priorities with our time and our life. And for me, and I was talking to you earlier, I've got a lot going on, and I'm using myself as an example. I know everybody here has similar things going on. But example, I just cleaned off my porch for the first time in 2 years, and so we actually have a porch now. And then when I cleared off the porch and I was sitting on it, I'm looking at the garden, and I'm thinking, wow, it's getting late. I need to get the squash in. I need to finish getting the beans in. I need to get this done and that done. But at the same time, we've got this class coming up, and there's stuff to do for the class. And it's like, am I going to go work on the class? Am I going to get the garden in? Am I going to finish doing this porch? I have to stain it. There's the house. The house which will never be done, but there's things that need to be done in it. And so I'm starting to compete with those, just like, if you will, personal kind of priorities. And then there's Shofar Mountain, the community. There's things that need to be done for that, to facilitate that. There's Shofar Mountain, the assembly, the greater Shofar Mountain. It's like, all right, well, I need to touch base with this person. I need to do this. I need to pray about this. I need to think about this. We need to figure this out. And so those things start getting with me. And then it's like, well, wait a minute. Our first part on our vision statement, a united community seeking a deeper and more obedient relationship with Yah, with the Father. And it's like, you know what? My relationship with the Father is not perfect, right? I have work that I need to do with the Father. My relationship with my wife is going great. We've been married 31 years, praise the Father. It's not perfect. There's things I have to do to dedicate to that. And so I start thinking about these things, and it's like, wow, there's a whole lot of priorities that I need to get ordered, and sometimes I wonder, maybe I don't get those right. And then divide that up, right? Elevate your thinking a level up, because you all have things like that you're doing, and think about, well, we have physical priorities, we have fleshly priorities, we have spiritual priorities. And I, of all people, except for Pastor Kim, should know that, right? It's like, yeah, you've got your spiritual priorities you need to get in order. Right? And you need to, and these things take time. It's easy to say multitask, but it's hard to do that. You can pray and plant beans. You can do that. But you can't do Bible study and plant beans. You can't get on the phone. I guess you could probably get on the phone and call somebody and plant beans, but it's not that easy. And so I got to thinking about those things. And that led me somewhere in the Word. You're going to follow where I went today, and we'll go there. And I think if we were going to name today's sermon, we would call it Priorities, Seeds, Babylon, and You. Priorities, Seeds, Babylon, and You. And it's like, wow, those things, how do they go together? I don't know, but they did. Please turn 1 Corinthians chapter 3. I was looking at my garden. I was thinking about planting those beans and planting those seeds, and I remembered the verse where Paul says, I planted, Apollos watered, and God gave the increase, right? And so I said, hey, I need to go look at that, because I was trying to get my own personal priorities in order, but I think there's something here for you all. And so just kind of to keep it all in context, and we're going to do a lot of reading today, and you can take little notes and go back and do some deeper thinking later, because there's too much to cover today, but I wanted to get it all out there. All right, so 1 Corinthians chapter 3. And I, brethren, could not speak unto you as spiritual, but as unto carnal, even as unto babes in Christ. I have fed you with milk, not with meat, or not with real food. For hitherto ye were not able to bear it. Guess what? Neither yet are ye able to bear. So Paul is going right down to the base level, right? He's saying, hey, you guys are carnal, fleshly beings. You're not really ready for the higher level stuff yet. So I've got to talk to you on a level that you can understand. For ye are yet carnal. That means fleshly. You're focused in the person. For whereas there is among you envying and strife and divisions, are you not carnal and walk as men. So he's getting ready to address a problem, right? And the problem was there was a split in the church in Corinth, and some people are saying, well, I follow Paul, and other people say, well, we follow Apollos, and so there's a denominational split kind of thing starting to happen. He's like, guys, you're being ridiculous, all right? And that's where he's going here, but he's saying you guys are thinking fleshly. For while one says, I am of Paul, and another, I am of Apollos, are you not carnal? Aren't you in your flesh when you say, I'm following this guy? Who then is Paul, and who is Apollos, but ministers by whom ye believed, even as the Lord, or Yahweh, gave to every man? And here's why we went here. I have planted, Apollos has watered, but God, Elohim, gave the increase. So then neither is he that plants anything, neither is he that waters, but Elohim that gives the increase. So it kind of helps me as a pastor. You know, I think, all right, I plant seeds, but then y'all plant seeds too, right? I mean, it's not just a pastor's job to plant seeds. Y'all go out there and plant seeds. And sometimes, here, I won't put the burden on you. I'll just put the burden on me. Sometimes when somebody gets it, when Sister Kate and I sit down and talk to a brother or sister and the light bulb goes off, you feel pretty good about that. A little bit of pride can sometimes slip in there too, if we're not careful. It's like, yeah, I got this sister to see the truth. No, you didn't. You did not. You planted a seed. Yah brought it to bear, right? Whether he was going to do it or not. And so priorities, seed planting, right? It's like, all right, and I'm talking spiritual seed planting now. We're going out there, okay, and you've heard me say this before, I get really hung up on results. And it's like, you know, you scatter seed, you scatter seed, you scatter seed, is it growing or not? If it doesn't, I feel personally responsible. And that's not necessarily so. Now, he that plants and he that watereth are one. And it's really one thing. And every man shall receive his own award according to his labor. For we are laborers together. How does this read in scriptures? Because in King James it says, we are laborers together with God. But really, that's not what it means. Because if you think about that in English, we're laborers together with God, that means God is my fellow laborer. That's not true. And that's not what this means. What this means is, in this case, I'm glad you're here, Pastor Kim. If Pastor Kim and I are both addressing a group of people, and it's like, in this case, I'll just be Paul, I planted and Pastor Kim watered, we're both ministers together. He and I are both preaching the Most High Yah. We're not together with God on this. He's not our fellow worker. He's not our equal. We're together getting this message put out, this gospel put out. And that's how it reads. What's it read in scriptures?
We are fellow workers of Elohim.
Fellow workers of Elohim. That does sound better. All right. According to his own labor. 9. For we are laborers, okay, together with God. Ye are God's husbandry, ye are God's building. So we are the laborers, y'all are God's husbandry, you're the plants that grow from him, y'all are the buildings that he produces. All right, we're just out there working in the fields. And he's trying to get rid of the division between him and Apollos. He's trying to say, look, we're all on the same side here, we're on Elohim's side. According to the grace of Elohim, which is given unto me as a wise master builder, I have laid the foundation, and another builds thereon. Paul laid the foundation, Apollos came later and built upon it. But let every man take heed how he builds thereupon. For other foundation can no man lay than that is laid, which is Jesus Christ. Now, I almost went on a tangent here about what do you build on. You know, if you build on the sand, it goes away. But if you build on the rock that is Yeshua, the rock that is Jesus, that's going to be a firm foundation. If you don't build on him, you got nothing. And so that applies to me, right? Shofar Mountain, personal life, all these things. It's like we have to have Yeshua, Jesus, as our foundation. It applies to you. When you're starting to set your priorities in life, you've got to say, am I bringing this all the way down to Yeshua? Is Yeshua the base of what I'm doing? Because if he's not, well, we're going to read. Verse 12. Now, if any man build upon this foundation, so you've already got this foundation, if you build on it gold or silver or precious stones or heck, wood, hay, or stubble, every man's work shall be made manifest, for the day shall declare it. Do you know what day that is? That's Judgment Day. It's all going to come to the judge on Judgment Day. We're all going to stand before him, because it shall be revealed by fire. And the fire shall test every man's work of what sort it is. This is the fire in the end, the righteous fire, the judgment fire. It's coming, and everybody's going to get judged. We're all going to be tried. We're all going to, if you will, metaphorically go through the tribulation fire, assuming we're here. But it's all going to be revealed. If any man's work abides, which he has built thereupon, he shall receive a reward. And so you base your life work on different things. You know, right here we don't have architects and bankers and stuff like that in this congregation, but people build a life work, and they go from the time they get out of high school until they die, and they've got something to show for it, a family, a business, a household, a woman, you know, whatever, same things. In the end, you're going to be judged on how that relates to your relationship with the Father, with Yeshua. And if it remains, then you get a reward for it. If any man's work shall be burned, he shall suffer loss. Your work will be burned, but he himself shall be saved, yet so is by fire. I was going to end there, but there's some good stuff here, and we're almost done with chapter, so we're going to go. Do you not know that you are a temple of Elohim and that the Spirit of Elohim dwells in you? I just told somebody this on YouTube who made a angry comment towards me, and I'm like, hey, don't you know that the temple of God is in you? And how are you treating yourself? How are you treating this temple? You know, what are you doing to it or with it or whatever? If any man defiles the temple of Elohim, of God, him shall God destroy. For the temple of God is holy, which temple ye are. It's not specifically stated in the word that worrying is a sin. It's not specifically stated, but it is a concept, right? Yah takes care of us. He takes care of his own. If he's going to care about a sparrow, he's going to care about you. He counts all the hair on your head. What are you going to worry about if, you know, you're going to have your daily bread? Chill. Don't worry about that. This is a verse that we can take strength in. If anybody harms you, Yah's got him. Vengeance is mine, I will repay, saith the Lord, right? Let no man deceive himself. If any man among you seems to be wise in this world, let him become a fool, that he may be wise. For wisdom of this world is foolishness with God. For it is written, he taketh the wise in their own craftiness. Oh, they think they're smart. Watch this. And again, the Lord knows the thoughts of the wise, that they are vain. Therefore let no man glory in men. Now he's summing up his whole point with Apollos or Paul. For all things are yours, whether Paul or Apollos or Cephas, Peter, or the world, or life, or death, or the things present, or the things to come, all are yours, and ye are Christ, and Christ is God's. And so let's think about that for a second. We're talking about priorities in life. You've all got a lot of things to do. You have a lot of things to get done, but all the things of the world, life, death, things present, things to come, they're all yours if you're in Christ. In other words, don't worry about those things. Focus on Christ. Focus on Him. And so I went here, and therefore we went there because of seeds planted. Paul said, I planted, Apollos watered, but God gives the increase. What's something about seeds that everybody knows? Pastor Kim has probably given a sermon on it. The sower. The sower went out to sow, right? Let's go there. Matthew 13. Matthew chapter 13. Verse 1, the same day Yeshua, Jesus, went out of the house, and he sat by the seaside, and great multitudes were gathered together unto him, so that he went into a ship, and he sat, and the whole multitude stood on the shore. The only way he could get somewhere where everybody could see him and hear him is if he backed off onto this little boat that was out there. And he spake many things unto them in parables, saying, and here's where we're going, the sower, the parable of the sower. Behold, a sower went forth to sow. And when he had sowed, some seeds fell by the wayside, and the fowls came and devoured them up. All right, now the way they used to plant then is they would broadcast out of a bag seeds, right? And they would just throw it. We were going to go to the plow. No man sets his hand to the plow and turns back, right? If you do that, you're toast. Oh, we're not going there now. But they would just scatter seeds out, and then they would kind of grow where they did. They didn't plant like we do here, one seed at a time. So he plants, falls by the side. Verse 5, some fell by the stony places where they had not much earth, and forthwith they sprung up, because they had no deepness of earth. And when the sun was up, they were scorched, and because they had no root, they withered away. And some fell among thorns, and the thorns sprung up and choked them. But others fell into the good ground and brought forth fruit, some 100-fold, Some 60-fold, some 30-fold. There are about 8 different ways at least to take this sermon right now and go with this parable of the sower. Right? We haven't even got to Yeshua's explanation of it yet. But there's different amounts of fruit that different people bear. That's just one thing to think about, because we're thinking about priorities, and priorities are to get things done, right? We set priorities to get things done. Getting things done is a type of fruit. There's different kinds of fruit going to come. Another thing just kind of to think about, of all these seeds that are scattered, assuming that it was the same amount of scattering in each place, only 25% of them are doing anything. 75% of these seeds that are getting thrown out end up not making it at all. And so, for those of us throwing seeds, who has ears to hear, let him hear. And the disciples came and they said to him, how come you speak in parables? And he answered and he said unto them, because it is given to you to know the mysteries of the kingdom of heaven, but to them it is not given. This is a harsh thing for people to understand sometimes. Not everybody is going to get it. We're throwing seeds out, we're talking to people, we're trying to shed the truth with people, and everybody's not going to get it, and it's not up to you. It's not given to everyone to understand. Verse 12, for whosoever has faith, to him shall be given, and he that has more, and he shall have more abundance. But whosoever has not, from him shall be taken away even that he has. If you have a lot of faith, you're going to get more faith because you're going to see things happen. If you don't have a lot of faith, you're going to be rewarded with your lack of faith, with that lack of faith. Therefore I speak to them in parables, because they seeing see not, and hearing they hear not, neither do they understand. And in them is fulfilled the prophecy of Isaiah, which says, by hearing ye shall hear and shall not understand, and seeing ye shall see and not perceive. For this people's heart is waxed gross, and their ears are dull of hearing, and their eyes they have closed, lest at any time they should see with their eyes, and hear with their ears, and should understand with their heart, and should be converted, and I should heal them. Doesn't that sound harsh? Yah is saying they don't understand because I don't want them to understand, because if they did understand, then I would heal them. And I haven't decided to heal them. I haven't decided to save them. They're not going to make it. I've already decided. His ways are not our ways. His understanding is higher than our understanding, and we can't get that. But these people whose heart is growing fat, that's an analogy for it. They're not hungry for the truth. They don't want to know more. They have heard enough. Their ears are stopped up. They don't want to hear what you have to say. They don't want to hear what he has to say. Their eyes are blind. They can't see. They don't want to see. They are happy where they're at, and Yah's got them where they're at. I think that when we're casting seeds, when we're trying to spread the truth, when we're trying to go out there and share the gospel, we should really pray for God, for Yahweh, for Elohim to open their eyes. Not, Father, give me the strength to let them see the light. They're either going to see the light or not based on what he wants to do. It's not about you. It's about him. But, verse 16, blessed are you, your eyes for they see, and your ears for they hear. For verily I say unto you, that many prophets and righteous men have desired to see those things which ye see, and have not seen them, and to hear those things which ye hear, and have not heard them. So here you go. Hear ye therefore the parable of the sower. When anyone hears the word of the kingdom, and understands it not, when you share the word, and the people you're sharing it with, do not understand it, then comes the wicked one. Who's that? That's the adversary. That's Satan, right? And he catches away that which was sown in his heart. This is those which receive the seed by the way. So that's the example that he's doing there. He's speaking parables like, hey, some people aren't going to get it, man. They just don't understand, and Satan's going to pull it right out with those words that you put into them. But he that received the seed into the stony places, the same is he that hears the word and immediately with joy receives it. But he doesn't have a root in himself, and he endures for a little while, and then when tribulation or persecution or testing, I add, will arise because of the word, by and by he is offended. I've seen that personally. We sat in our living room, showed a DVD to the elders that explained Christmas, and this one family was huge into Christmas, and she's like, I get it, I get it, I get it. We can't do that anymore. We have to get rid of all that decorations and pagan stuff. And her husband's like, okay, because now I have room for my woodworking stuff. 3 weeks later began the Christmas season, and she was back into it. And they did Christmas well. Right? They had a nicely decorated home. They had like the formal tree and the kids tree and the guest tree, and the house it wasn't tacky, it was nice. They did it big, but it's like the cares of this world, this trial, her parents lived right next door, and she had no depth, and it pulled it right out of her. But he that receives the seed in the stony places, and this is why we're here today, the same is he that hears the word. He that receives the seed among the thorns is he that hears the word, and the cares of this world and the deceitfulness of riches choke the word and become unfruitful. I'm just going to finish it up and we're coming back here. But he that receives the seed into the good ground is he that hears the word and understands it, which also bears fruit and brings forth some 100-fold, some 60, some 30. All right, go back up there to 22. Receiving the seed, what's the seed?
The word.
The word. What's the word?
The gospel, the good news.
It's the good news of the kingdom. It's the good news of Yeshua, of Jesus, of basically salvation, the plan of salvation, what it is, what it's all about. The people who receive that seed among the thorns, they hear the word, and two things choke the word. What are those two things?
Worry of this age and the deceit of riches.
The care of this world and the deceitfulness of riches. Keep your finger here, or actually you don't have to. Just remember that. Care of this world, deceitfulness of riches. World, riches. World, riches. Those two things choke the word. Skip forward to Luke chapter 8. Verse 14. We're just going right there. Same story, slightly different explanation that Yeshua gives. Luke 8:14. Here's Yeshua explaining it again, and he goes, that which fell among the thorns are they which when they heard go forth and are choked by the cares and the riches, right? We covered that already. And the pleasures of this life, and they bring no fruit to perfection. Cares of this world, riches of this life, and then this one is the pleasures of this life. We all need to dwell on this more. I have said time and time again that Shofar Mountain is a way. It is not the way. I have said time and again that you can be a true follower of Yeshua and live in Manhattan, the Bronx. You know, I'm just trying to, in my mind, I've never even been to Manhattan, but to me it seems like a really crowded, busy, Babylonian kind of place. You can be a true believer and live there. You could live in Moscow. You could live wherever and be a true believer. So you don't have to live this way. But I think it's harder to live in that environment. We just had a conversation yesterday or the day before, whenever that was, about how you're either in or you're out. And yes, you can be in and be a true believer. You can be surrounded by Babylon, surrounded by the cares of this world, surrounded by the cares of this world and riches and pleasantries and all this good stuff, and still do okay. But it's hard. You know, Yeshua said it's easier, the way it says in the King James, for a camel to get through the eye of a needle than it is for a rich man to get into heaven. Now, actually, that's all mistranslated, and it's a big rope through a needle. But whatever, the point is the same. Have you seen Francis Chan's video on that? He goes, I have been preaching on this verse for 20 years, and I finally understand what it means when it says it's easier. I'm totally copying Francis Chan because that's what he said, but it was cool how he did it. When it says it's easier for a camel to get through the eye of a needle than it is for a rich man to get in heaven. And here it is. It's easier for a camel to get through an eye of a needle. And he just goes on. It's like, hey, that part doesn't matter. Get with the program, what we're talking about here. It's hard for a rich man to get into heaven. It's not impossible. There's nothing in the Word that's anti-rich. You can have $1 bazillion and be an awesome believer. But it's harder. Because when you get $1 bazillion, now all of a sudden it's like, man, I've got to make this deal. Because if I don't, this $250 million is going to go away. So I'm consumed with the cares of this world. I'm consumed with riches. There's nothing wrong with having riches. There's nothing wrong with having the best mattress in the world and the nicest sheets and really good food. There's nothing wrong with that. But where's your priorities? And where is your focus? It's like it's not really a joke, but you've heard it before. People talk about winning the lottery, and they're like, oh, it wouldn't affect me. I wouldn't change. I could win $40 million. I'd be exactly the same. Wouldn't affect me. Well, Yeshua begs to differ. It's hard when you're rich to get it. And that's because our focus, our priorities change. And it's easy to forget things. There's a reason that poor farmers are closer to God. They depend on Him for rain and for sun and for no early frost and yada, yada, yada. They can't just go, well, yeah, I got another $250,000. I'll just go buy some organic vegetables at the market that were grown in Belize or whatever. They depend on Him. There's a guy was named Friedrich Nietzsche. I like a couple of his sayings. One of his sayings is, that which does not kill me makes me stronger, right? You know. The other one, which is why a lot of Christians say, oh, you can't quote Nietzsche, is because Nietzsche's the one who infamously said, God is dead. That's what he's really famous for. But people misunderstand him. Nietzsche was a believer. What he meant was, we are coming into the industrial age, because that's when he was writing, back then in 1800s, I think. And now people no longer depend on God. They depend on Brother Tristan to crank that factory up to give me the things I need. And so, Brother Tristan, you better have that thing running on Monday morning because I need those parts because I'm selling them to Brother Justin. And God doesn't figure into it anymore. It's mankind. And so priorities change. And so it is easier for us to get closer to God when we remove ourselves from the noise. It's easier for us to focus on Him when it's like, wow, it's really hot today and I've got to get this thing done. Father, we could use... Think about us here. I know I'm not the only one who thinks about this. It's Shabbat. I sure hope it's not raining. Because when the Fletchalls are here, the other Fletchalls, the 12 of them, it's like, we don't want to all go in there in the rain and it's hot because we can't fit. And it's like, please, Father, just let it break the rain while we're here. We're focused on that. If we were some mega church, it's like, whatever, man, get out of your cars, come under the under thing and get in and we're good. It doesn't matter. We don't think about those things. Just that, focusing on those things. All right, so in Matthew, Yeshua says, we can read in Matthew, the cares of this world, the deceitfulness of riches. In Luke, it's the cares, the riches, and the pleasures of this life. The cares of this world, the pleasures of this life, and riches. Are we talking physical? Are we talking spiritual? The cares of this world, the pleasures of this world, the riches of this world. Those are two dirty dogs. I submit to you, it's both. I think there's higher understanding for us when we start looking at things more through a spiritual lens. The physical is very real. There's no getting around that. We have to eat. We have to sleep somewhere. We have to, not be too hot. 98.6 temperature. We have to maintain in our bodies. But we can read in the Word. By the sweat of your brow shall you eat your bread. Right? Adam messed up, so now he's got to work to eat. We read in the Word, 6 days shall man labor. 7th day you rest, right? These are commandments. These are principles that are put in. So those are definitely physical things. We have to work. We have to grow our food or work to produce our food. I mean, I get it. We can read in the New Testament, they famously hung it up above Jamestown. Jamestown, a bunch of rich people came to America. They wanted to make their priorities were fame and fortune and the cares of this world. And they brought these underlings with them, these like worker bees. And they get there and they all start starving to death. And people get sick and everybody's dying. And so there's like a couple rich guys and a couple poor guys left. And the rich guys are like, we ain't working. That's what we brought you for. Nobody's working, nobody's eating. And so John Smith, right, hung up the sign. I'm pretty sure it's John Smith. He who does not work shall not eat. 2 Thessalonians 3:10. Think about that from a modern Christian perspective. If you don't work, you're not going to eat. People used to come. We had a church out in the middle of nowhere in Kansas. And the last pastor would give everybody who came money. Everybody who came and stopped, and they would do the same hard luck story. hey man, I'm trying to get in a bus and I ran out of gas. And they were just scammers. You could tell they were scammers. This isn't some poor pregnant lady who doesn't know what she's going to do because she just left her husband who's beating her up. Right? It was not that. And so I became the pastor there, and the word's out. It's like on the hobo line, right? This is a good place to get money. And so they would come to me. And the first guy I gave money to because I hadn't thought it through yet. And I'm like, but I didn't feel right about it because I knew he was scamming me. I knew he wasn't a poor guy who needed the money. And so I started thinking about it. It's like, Father, what do I do? Because, if you entertain these poor people, you're entertaining angels that came for me. So you don't want to just have this hard heart and say, go away. And I'd talked to the pastor about that before me. And he goes, hey, it's not up to me. It's up to God to decide if they need it or not. That's a good answer. But I decided, no. He who does not work shall not eat. So these people would show up and I'd say, well, yeah, I can do that, but it says by the sweat of a man's brow shall he eat his bread. He who does not work shall not eat. So I tell you what, you see all these sticks? And we were on 3 acres, our thing. I said, go pick up those sticks, put them all in a pile here because we've got to mow, and the sticks got, the sticks that fall out of the trees. Some of them were big. Put them all over here and I'll give you some gas money. Do you know everybody except one person turned me down, and that guy asked me for $5 and I gave him 20. Because I'm like, you know what? He may have really needed it. And he worked for the money. Everybody else is like, no, man, it's cool. And they left. And then people quit coming. Hey, he who does not work shall not eat. And so those are physical things that we get out of the Word. But there's also spiritual things that are based on this in the Word. And so I go to thinking, these people who are having a hard time receiving the Word, these people, the rich man who can't get into heaven, What does that look like coming up in our near future? And I immediately flash the stereotypical place where pleasures are everywhere, and there's good things to eat, and there's fine silks, and there's this, and it's Babylon, right? Babylon was awesome. Babylon was a great place, and so we're going to Revelation. We're going to go to Revelation 18. Book of Revelation was written when?
98 is the 98 AD.
Somewhere around 90 AD, right? It was written, Revelation. When was the temple destroyed?
70
Beforehand. Before Revelation. Revelation is not talking about the destruction of the temple. So about AD 90-ish, Revelation was written. So we go to Revelation 18. Cares of this world, the riches of this world, the pleasures of life. These things that people prioritize in their life that are keeping people from experiencing the richness of Yeshua. Verse 18 verse 1. And after these things I saw another angel come down from heaven having great power, and the earth was lightened with his glory. And he cried mightily with a strong voice, saying, Babylon the Great is fallen, and has become the habitation of devils, and the hold of every foul spirit, and a cage of every unclean and hateful bird. When we read about Babylon, and we're going to read some more about Babylon, is Babylon a city? Is Babylon a nation? Is Babylon a system? Is Babylon physical? Or is Babylon spiritual? The answer is yes. Exactly so. Revelation, just to keep your mind in the right place here, is written about the future. Some of us think the potentially near future that's coming. And so when you start reading about Babylon in this context, you should start thinking what looks like Babylon today. Let's keep going. For all the nations have drunk of the wine and of the wrath of her fornication, and the kings of the earth have committed fornication with her, and the merchants of the earth are waxed rich through the abundance of her delicacies. All those things that people long for. The greatest producing nation in the world until recently, and it may still be, was America, U.S. All the kings of the world meet where?
New York.
New York. UN building. That's starting to change. They're starting to have little meetings elsewhere now. The EU's getting big. Asia's trying to get their thing going on. Russia and the Middle Eastern countries are trying to get stuff going on. But right now, still, the kings of the world are meeting in New York. And I heard another voice from heaven saying, "Come out of her, my people, that ye be not partakers of her sins, and that ye receive not of her plagues." So this voice is saying, my people are in Babylon in this case. My people are surrounded by this nonsense that's going on in Babylon, in this richness, and Yeshua, this is Jesus speaking in Revelation, right? But it's God the Father, Yeshua, is saying, come out of her so that you don't participate in what's going on there, so that you don't get spanked when I spank them with these plagues and punishments. For her sins have reached unto heaven, and God has remembered her iniquities. Reward her even as she rewarded you, and double unto her double according to her works, and the cup which she has filled, fill to her double. We're going to get into this more, but how are we supposed to react? Because we know where this is going, right? We've all read this. Babylon's fixing to get judged here. How are we supposed to react to that when Babylon's judged? Oh, those poor people died. Well, let's see what he says. Right here, he's saying, reward them double what they did to you. Pile on. How much she has glorified herself and lived deliciously. So much torment and sorrow give her. For she says in her heart, I sit as a queen and am no widow, and I shall see no sorrow. Pompousness, arrogance. Nothing's going to happen to me. We're America, man. We got the world by the tail. Right? Nothing's going to happen to us. We control the world. Therefore shall her plagues come in one day, death and mourning and famine, and she shall be utterly burned with fire, for strong is Yahweh Elohim who judges her. And the kings of the earth who have committed fornication and lived deliciously with her shall bewail her. Now see, notice this. The kings are bewailing Babylon. They're not bewailing themselves. And lament for her, and they shall see the smoke of her burning, standing afar off for fear of her torment, saying, Alas, alas, the great city Babylon, that mighty city, for in 1 hour is thy judgment come. And the merchants of the earth shall weep and mourn over her, for no man buys her merchandise any more. And then it goes into all the merchandise, gold and silver and precious stones and pearls and fine linen and purple and silk and da-da-da-da-da. These are all delicious things. These are all the things that people want. They're desirable. They're rich. They're all the things we read about that choke the word of people. These worldly people get surrounded with these riches, and they can't focus on Yah. Their attention is taken from him. 14, and the fruits that thy soul lusted after are departed from thee, and all the things that were dainty and good are departed from thee, and thou shalt find them no more at all. The merchants of these things which were made rich by her shall stand afar off for fear of her torment. They don't want it. And the weeping and the wailing, and saying, Alas, alas, that great city which was clothed, and then they're weeping, and they throw dust on their heads, and on and on and on. I did a sermon on this, which we're not going to go into today, but that looks a whole lot like New York City getting nuked. If you start looking at the things they talk about there, and the merchants and the ships are far off, and they're looking at it, and they can't get close because of the radiation, and they're like, wow, this is a terrible thing. Quickly, turn to Revelation 14, verse 8. Just go back. Revelation, the book of Revelation, is not written in chronological order. He has a vision, John has a vision, and he flashes back and forth on similar scenes. And so we go back here, Revelation 14, verse 8. And there followed another angel saying, Babylon is fallen, is fallen. Remember, we just heard that? It's not falling again. It's the same thing. That great city, because she made all the nations drink of the wine of the wrath of her fornication. And a third angel followed them, saying with a loud voice, If any man worship the beast in his image, and receive his mark in his forehead or in his hand, the same shall drink of the wine of the wrath of God, which is poured out without mixture into the cup of his indignation, and he shall be tormented with fire and brimstone in the presence of the holy angels and in the presence of the Lamb, and the smoke of their torment ascends up forever and ever. And they have no rest day or night, who worship the beast and his image, and whosoever receives the mark of his name. I think a lot of evangelical Christians get this. They're like, I'm not taking the mark of the beast. Unless it's not exactly a laser tattoo on their hand or their arm. Or unless they say to them, well, I know that we haven't had any jobs in America for the last 5 years and everybody's hurting, but if you come get this mark that'll allow us to track you, you can then get a $100 gift card to Walmart or whatever. I think people line up for it, for this mark. And if you do, you're toast. And then I just want to look at this one verse because it's here. Here's the patience of the saints. Who are the saints in Revelation? Who are the saints? They're the ones who make it, right? Are the ones who Yah is choosing. He's talking to the saints when he says, come out of her, my people. He's saving the saints. We read, elsewhere in 12, the saints run to the wilderness where they're protected. We're not going there today. But the saints are his people, right? And we're not talking about Catholic saints. We're talking his people, his believers. Saints is Kodesh ones, the set apart ones, right? That's who he's talking about here. Here's the patience of the saints. Here are they. Wow, what's it say?
Guarding the commandments of Elohim.
They keep the commandments and they have testimony of Jesus, the faith of Jesus. It's two things. You keep the commandments, you have a testimony of Jesus. That's the saints. I said it before, I say it again. Jews, practicing Jews, nominally keep the commandments. They don't have a testimony of Jesus. Mainline Christianity has a testimony of Jesus, but they don't keep the commandments of God. This is both. God saves a remnant, a small people. When that seed gets scattered out, 25% of it, I totally made up that number, but a fourth of the people he's talking about understand it and produce fruit, and the rest don't. This was written when? 90-ish? The year 90? The book of Jeremiah, which was where we're going, so you can start flipping back to Jeremiah chapter 50. Jeremiah was written around 500 BC. So 600 years, very roughly, before Revelation, the book of Jeremiah was written. So let's go to Jeremiah. Jeremiah chapter 50. Now you just heard the imagery, the words used, the description of what's going to go on, Revelation, the revelation of Jesus Christ to St. John, as they call him in the Catholic Church. Now listen to Jeremiah. And here's the thing, we're going to do something a little bit different today. I'm not going to break down every little verse and word in Jeremiah. There's just too much to go here. I mean, we may come back and actually do Jeremiah. My son is the one that got me looking at Jeremiah. He said, I've been reading Ezekiel and Jeremiah lately. So I went to Jeremiah. I'm in Revelation. And what I'm reading in Jeremiah is coming to my head. It's like, wow, we got to go to Jeremiah today. So we're going to cover some stuff fast. And you might want to make notes in your Bible to go back and look at it. Because there's some really interesting parallels in this bit of scripture that was written 600 years before Revelation. So, chapter 50, verse 1. The word of Yahweh spake against Babylon and against the land of the Chaldeans by Jeremiah the prophet. Declare ye among the nations and publish and set up a standard, publish and conceal not, saying, Babylon is taken, Bel is confounded, Merodach, another name for Bel, is broken in pieces. Her idols are confounded, her images are broken in pieces. Do you remember when we just read twice, Babylon, Babylon is fallen?
Yeah.
And angels are saying that? And here, Yah, the word of Yah, is saying, Babylon is taken. It sounds very similar. It was written 600 years before. Now, we know Revelation is future, and a lot of people think that Jeremiah was written about coming out of Babylon. They were in, the Jews, if you will, Judah was taken into Babylonian captivity, and it's about that. We're going to skip ahead and then come back. Just look at verse 20 of 50. In those, because he's fixing to talk about what's going to happen to Babylon, and we'll look at that briefly. But it says in verse 20, in those days are the days that he's talked about up to this point, which we're going to go back and look at. In those days and in that time, saith Yahweh, the iniquity of Israel shall be sought for, and there shall be none. And the sins of Judah, and they shall not be found, for I will pardon them whom I reserve. Is there iniquity in Israel today?
Oh, yeah.
The largest gay pride parade in the world is in Tel Aviv every year. There's all kinds of iniquity going on. This has not happened yet. This is talking, flip back, this is talking about when Judah and Ephraim come together, when the southern kingdom of Judah and the lost tribes, as they're called, of Israel, come together again in the end times. Verse 3, for out of the north there comes up a nation against her, which shall make her land desolate, and none shall dwell therein, and they shall remove, and they shall depart, both man and beast. There's one nation in the north, and again, we're not getting into eschatology here today, but it's referred to as Gog and Magog elsewhere. It's Russia. and Russia's allies. And if you look at how the world is setting up right now, it doesn't matter why it is, really. It matters what is. We, leader of the Western world, are poking Russia. We're poking them, poking them, poking them, poking them. There's eventually going to be payback for that. I submit, and it's written here. In those days and in that time, verse 4, saith Yahweh, the children of Israel shall come, they and the children of Judah together. That hasn't happened yet. Going and weeping, and they shall go and seek Yahweh their Elohim. And they shall ask the way to Zion with their faces thitherward, saying, Come, and let us join ourselves to Yahweh in a perpetual covenant that shall not be forgotten. My people have been as lost sheep. Look at verse 8. Remove out of the midst of Babylon and go forth out of the land of the Chaldeans and be as the he-goats before the flocks. Come out of her, my people. That's what we read in Revelation. Come out of Babylon, my people. Here he's talking to his people and he says, get out of the middle of Babylon. For lo, I will raise a cause and come up against Babylon, an assembly of great nations from the north country, and they shall set themselves in array against her. Remember when I said, who's Babylon? Is Babylon a city? Is it a nation? Is it a state? Is it a system? And the answer is yes. I'm telling you, I have done lots of reading, as you have. I don't see a whole lot of the United States of America in end times prophecy. And people say, well, that's because America didn't exist then. Yeah, well, neither did Russia.
Right.
Russia was a bunch of fat white dudes living in huts that had no power. When John wrote Revelation, talking about this huge army of the north coming down, Gog and Magog. And you can do... what's word studies when you study where language comes from? Gog and Magog refers to Russia. It's like there were tribes up there called Gog and Magog. Talks about China coming across the Euphrates into the Middle East. Did they know about China? China's been a big country for a long time. They probably did have trade back and forth. So you could say they might have known about China. Egypt was Israel's biggest enemy. Egypt isn't in end times Revelation as a power. That's because I submit to you, America's not going to be a world power when all this comes to pass. Because the armies of the north with an assembly of nations, in 1 hour comes her destruction, which is, I submit to you, America's destruction will come in 1 hour. It'll be fast. We're going to skip a little bit. Verse 13, because the wrath of Yahweh, it shall not be inhabited, and it shall be wholly desolate, and everyone that goes by Babylon shall be astonished and hiss at her plagues. Just like when we read in Revelation, the merchants afar off are going, wow, that's just terrible, man. We don't want to go over there. Put yourselves, look at this verse 14, put yourselves in array against Babylon round about, all ye that bend the bow. Shoot at her, spare no arrows, for she has sinned against Yahweh. This is Yah, God, telling the people, fight Babylon. Now, he's telling the armies that are coming to destroy Babylon to do that. But we're supposed to be on Yah's side on this, and Yah is judging Babylon. I submit to you, we should be cheering when that happens. Skip all the way down to 31. Verse 31. Behold, I am against thee, O thou most proud, he's talking to Babylon, saith the Lord God of hosts, for thy day is come, the time that I will visit thee. I can see Pastor Dow singing now on his videos, and I'm proud to be an American, or at least I know. We have a prideful nation. You can spot Americans overseas really easy because we walk with a pride and an arrogance. And our pride and our arrogance develops out of World War II, quite frankly, because we did a lot of great things during World War II and for a while, and we brought freedom to the world and yada yada. And then we walked around like we owned the place. And it's now just evolved to, what have you done for me lately except overthrow my country? You know, enslave my people. And we're still this proud, arrogant, boastful people. And he's saying, O thou most proud, saith the Lord God of armies. See, the Lord God of hosts is armies. He's kind of put on his army hat. Yahweh Sabaoth. And the most proud shall stumble and fall, and none shall raise him up. And I will kindle a fire in his cities, and I shall devour all round about him. You can be a good believer and be in a city, and you're going to be a martyr. You're going to be burned up. He has told us, come out of her, my people. Come out of her so that you don't participate, so you don't experience her plagues that I'm sending. He's told us in Jeremiah. He's told us in Revelation. Look at chapter 51, verse 6. Flee out of the midst of Babylon and deliver every man his soul. Be not cut off in her iniquity, for this is the time of Yahweh's vengeance. He will render unto her a recompense. How fast does the judgment come into Babylon? Weeks? Months? An hour. And right before that hour happens, what is she saying? Nothing's going to happen to me. I'm sitting here as a queen. Everything's good. That's why God is telling his people, come out of her now. You got to get out of those cities. But the cities are comfortable. But I can have a job in the city. But I have a good job in the city. If I moved out of the city, I'd be working for O'Reilly's, at the cash register making $11 an hour. But here in the city, I'm making $120K a year. It's those pleasures. It's those things that make it harder. And then what do you focus on when you're in the city? Again, I'm not saying you can't. You can be a good believer in the city, but it's harder because you're surrounded by all that stuff. Verse 9 of 51. We would have healed Babylon, but she is not healed. Forsake her. Let us go everyone to his own country, for her judgment reaches up to heaven and is lifted up even to the skies. The Lord, Yahweh, has brought forth our righteousness. Come and let us declare in Zion the work of Yahweh our Elohim. Verse 13, we're skipping on purpose. O thou that dwellest upon many waters, abundant in treasures, thy end is come, and the measure of thy covetousness. One of the things that is required, to be a great nation, and it always has been, is that you have access to the sea. You have to have access to the sea to be a great nation, because that's world trade, that's commerce, that's talking back and forth. America is blessed in that we have oceans on both of our massive shores, and we have the Mississippi River, which runs right up the middle of it. So you can look at this and go, those that dwellest upon many waters, abundant in treasures. I'm telling you, I think this is America, what we call America today, the United States of America. And so judging, go down to 26. And they shall not take of thee a stone for a corner, nor a stone for foundations, but thou shalt be desolate forever, saith Yahweh. Set ye up a standard in the land, blow the shofar among the nations, prepare the nations against her, call together against her the kingdoms of Ararat, Mini, Ashkenaz, appoint a captain against her, cause the horses to come up, rough the caterpillars, yada, 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 destruction, destruction, destruction. Verse 42. You guys have heard me say this? All of our government stuff is moving off of the East Coast. The Defense Intelligence Agency moved from just north of D.C. in Maryland on whatever that fort was called, I don't remember right now, across the mountains into Charlottesville. It's on the other side of the Appalachians. The FBI is moving their office from Quantico, Virginia, which is right on Chesapeake Bay, into West Virginia. The National Command Authority is moving to Denver, all the way across. There was talk, and you probably picked up on this better than I did because you're a financial-minded guy. They're moving something to Chicago from New York, like a backup Wall Street thing is going to Chicago. They're getting everything off the East Coast. Why? They're getting things off the East Coast because scientists, you can look this up yourself, there's these weird little islands, the Canary Islands, they're little off the coast of Africa. The top of one of them is going to fall in the ocean, and when it does, it's going to make a tidal wave that hits the whole east coast of the United States with like a 100-foot tidal wave. And it's going to go to the base of the mountains. Look it up yourself. Now look at this. Verse 42 of Jeremiah 51. The sea is come up upon Babylon. She is covered with a multitude of waves thereof. Her cities are a desolation, a dry land, a wilderness, a land wherein no man dwelleth, nor does any man pass thereby. You know about the Bell Gate?
Yeah.
ISIS, who we created, blew up this gate to this temple of Bel. Bel is shortened form of Baal, just like Yah is a shortened form of Yahweh, the Lord, Jehovah, right? So we're going to put this Temple of Baal gate, they were going to do it on 19 April in New York City. They didn't. They held off on it, and they put one up in London, but they're still going to put one up in New York City. I'm telling you, when they do that, I think that clock is ticking. Once they put this Temple of Baal up there. Verse 44, I will punish Bel in Babylon, and I will bring forth out of his mouth that which he has swallowed up, and the nations shall not flow together any more unto him. Wow! New York City, Temple of Baal, I'm going to make him throw that up. The nations won't come there anymore. The nations flow right into that UN center in New York City right now, and that's not going to happen anymore. My people, verse 45, go ye out of the midst of her, and deliver ye every man his soul from the fierce anger of Yahweh. You know about Black Lives Matter? You guys seen that? I don't have TV. Black Lives Matter. You know about the Bernie Sanders people at the other Democratic conventions? They're getting all antsy, and somebody just had a sign that said kill Trump, or he's not going to live a week in office or something. It's getting really violent out there. Yeshua says, he's talking about the end. They said, when will the end be? And he goes, nation shall rise against nation and kingdom against kingdom. Remember that? It's like Matthew 24, Mark 13. He says that. Nation against nation is ethnos against ethnos. That's race riots. That's civil war within a nation. I'm telling you, we don't have a problem here with race relations. I mean, we're pretty well represented. We need an Indian. But, you know, we're doing pretty good as a group of people. But that doesn't matter, because out there in the world, in America, there are some huge problems that are brewing beneath the surface. And it says here, he's going to judge them with violence in the land, ruler against ruler. Verse 48, the heaven and the earth and all that is therein shall sing for Babylon, for the spoilers shall come from the north. What's the northernmost country? Russia. Russia. And Babylon has caused the slain of Israel to fall, and so has Babylon fall the slain of all the earth. Ye have escaped the sword. Oh, yeah, Babylon shall fall the slain of all the earth. It's like the big melting pot of America. All people are represented in America. All right, so more death and destruction. You guys can read this yourself. Verse 58, thus saith Yahweh of hosts, the broad walls of Babylon shall be utterly broken, the high gate shall be burned with fire. The people shall labor in vain, and the folk in the fire, and they shall be weary. Priorities in life. We have to work. There's nothing wrong with doing well. There's nothing wrong with being rich. There's nothing wrong with having nice houses, but it makes it harder to follow Yah. And a lot of times our priorities, our fleshly priorities, are tied up with money and the things money buys and the comfort money brings us. And I'm not saying money's not a real thing. We need money, right? We all work on it. But it's where are your priorities? And we can read time and again how being rich, which is a relative term, Francis Chan does another, man, Francis Chan's on my mind. I haven't watched one of his videos forever. He does another great video where he's looking at his audience and he goes, how many people here think they're rich? How many people here think you're rich? You know it's a loaded question, so you may raise your hand now. But really, I bet you most of you don't walk around day to day and go, man, I am flush. I'm like Donald Trump Jr., right? We don't think we're rich. But compared to the world, we're fantastically rich. I mean, I have what? 3 cars. 2 of them run. All right, those are 20 years old. Shut up. But, hey, there's people in India that'll never have a car. And we think, well, I'll give my old car to my kid. I mean, we're fabulously rich. And our priorities in life a lot of times, and so I'm bringing this whole thing to a close. Our priorities in life many times end up being fleshly and about personal things, when we really need to, 1, be concerned about what we're really focusing on in that case, and 2, I think the further we get on the way, the more we should become spiritual in our outlook, and the more we shouldn't worry about the small stuff. It's easy to read here, hey, I'll take care of you. Does the lilies consider the lilies? Da 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 da. But do we really take that to heart? Do we really believe that? What is driving our priorities? And Babylon is alluring. We could all, everybody here, I don't know y'all. And I don't know you two that well. But I'm betting everyone here could go make more money elsewhere. We just have to go. And then we could buy all these things, and we could justify it. We could do all these wonderful things. But we have to ask ourselves, what are our priorities based on? And so to sum it all up, because I realize we went everywhere, it's like, okay, so what now, Pastor Joe? What do we do with that? What do we do with all this stuff you just dumped on me? Because Americans really like steps. I want to know 3 things to check off my list and I'm squared away. My videos where I say 3 rifles or 3 things to do for this or 5 ways to accomplish this. People love that stuff. As Americans, we say, tell me what to do. Tell me what to do. We don't want to think the big spiritual thoughts. We're not comfortable with nebulousness. And coming up with a little list of things is a nice way to finish up a sermon. Right? It's like, okay, so the people can all even go, okay, so if I just do these 4 things, I'll be cool and not have to worry about Babylon. And so what to do? Well, it disappoints you a little, I think. Somebody asked Yeshua one time, they said, what's the greatest commandment? Yeah, if I know this one thing, I'd be squared away. If I do that one, I'm doing the most important one. That's one way of looking at it. Another way of looking at it, he's trying to trick them. Because when he said something, then he would come back and go, ha ha, what about this? Right? But I said, what's the greatest commandment? You guys remember what he said? Yeah. Shall love the Lord thy God with all thy heart and all thy soul and all thy might. That's the first and greatest commandment. And the second one is like unto it. Love your neighbor as yourself. On this hangs all the law and the prophets. Everything hangs on that. Love God, love your neighbor. And that's how we can order our priorities. See, I think that actually is a simple way to order. Now, it sounds simple. It's like a little list. And then when the actual application becomes difficult. All right, but what I'm doing, am I doing this for Yah? Am I doing this for my neighbor? Your neighbor includes your family. Right? You know, it's a given that you love your family. Is what I'm doing for Yah? Is it for my neighbors? Or is it for me? Just for me, because I want to feel better. And I think if we do that, it'll help us set our priorities. There's a lot of things coming that are going to challenge us, I believe, in the future. Some of us are being challenged right now. Brother Travis, you got some challenges right now. When we start looking at what we need to do to prioritize, I encourage you all to continue to focus on Yah, focus on your neighbor, and ask yourself the hard questions. Is what I'm doing supporting that? And if it's not, probably need to get rid of it and reorder your priorities. All right? Come out of her, my people. Let's pray.